I've drawn hundreds and hundreds of architectural scenes using all manner of perspective. And on top of that, I've made many drawing videos on understanding many different aspects of perspective. But I've come to realize that for many artists, videos on perspective are in fact only making their drawings worse. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Now here's a great drawing I came across. I love many things about it. I particularly love the really raw graphic drawing technique which has been used. I love the energy that the line work contains and holds in the overall scene. But the one area of weakness in this drawing is the perspective. And at first, my temptation is to think this artist would benefit from a few videos on perspective. And then I looked at it again and I realized, no, the actual problem is that they have already watched videos on perspective. And can I just say, I'm using this drawing with the very generous permission, even enthusiasm, of the artist who drew it. So from a perspective point of view, what's wrong with this drawing? Well, we know we need to establish an eye level. And the eye level I know is about here. And I have the advantage of having seen the reference photo for this drawing. As happens on perspective videos, that the perspective angles increase in angle as they move above eye level, and they also increase in angle as they move below eye level. What we also know from perspective videos is that all the perspective lines are meant to converge at the one point on eye level, which these only do very approximately. And in fact, if we focus on the perspective lines in this section, we can see that while the perspective lines do converge on eye level, when we look at the building as a whole, we can see that the angles are too extreme to create a building that could possibly exist looking this way from any angle. It compresses too quickly. Now, if we go to the other side of the street, eye level, we know, remains in the same place for a given scene, but there can be more than one vanishing point. And this street actually is converging. So because these two planes of buildings are not parallel, the vanishing points will be different. And in fact, what we see here is that the vanishing point for most of our lines is way above our eye level. And what that means is that we couldn't get this view and this view from the same position. That in fact, we would have to go much higher than we were when we were looking here to get this view. This is much more of a looking down view. Finally, we'll consider this building at the end of the street. But again, eye level remains constant. And if we look at the perspective lines on the left side of this building, we see that instead of converging at a vanishing point, they're really approximately parallel. And it's the same on the right-hand side of the building. So isn't the problem really that this artist hasn't watched enough perspective videos, rather than the problem is the perspective videos? Wouldn't that be the more obvious conclusion to make? Why blame the videos? I think the problem is that when we come to a teaching video, we're used to them telling us what to do. And so when we come to a video teaching how to use perspective, we think that this video is telling us all the things that we have to do to draw our drawing correctly with the correct perspective. And it's simply not true. What our perspective theory does is it describes what we're looking at. The perspective theory that others teach, and that I have videos myself doing the same thing, what these videos do is they're not telling you how you have to set up your drawing to draw it, but they're describing what you're seeing, because what we see follows certain physical rules, and that's why we can predict the way perspective will work. Unless I'm creating a drawing from my imagination, I don't need them at all. What I need to do is to observe carefully what's in front of me and to draw it accurately. But because I think these perspective instructional videos are telling me how to draw what I'm seeing, instead of just describing what I'm seeing, I feel that somehow I have to use them in a way that I'm confused about, because it hasn't been made clear in the video that this video is describing what we see. I hope this difference is making sense to you, because it's so important. When I look at an architectural subject, whether it's location sketching in real life or more often I'm looking at a photo, I don't need to work out where's eye level, where's the vanishing points. I need to observe carefully and draw what I see. And if I draw what I see perfectly, the perspective will be perfect. Well, life and drawings isn't usually that perfect. But if I focus my attention on observing my reference and drawing it accurately, and I don't get distracted trying to remember instructional videos on perspective I've seen and working out how to apply them, I will have a much simpler time doing my drawing. So what's the value of perspective videos? Why am I even bothering to make them if we're better off just observing our reference more carefully? The benefit, and I think there is a strong benefit, is that it helps me see my reference with more understanding. Perspective theory describes what we see in life. And so when I look at something in life, perspective theory, if I understand it rightly, lets me understand more quickly and more easily what's actually happening. And because I understand it better, I can observe it better. And the better I can observe, the better I can draw. Personally, I find understanding perspective theory a great help. I look at a scene, I always establish where the eye level is. I look to see at what point the perspective angles go one way as they increase, and then under the eye level go the other way. I pay careful attention to the top and the bottom perspective lines, and I know I need to spread the angle between them evenly throughout my building. But that theory doesn't tell me where to put the lines. It just describes to me the sort of pattern I will see in my building. But knowing that pattern helps me to see it more easily, and then I can copy what's actually in front of me. Let's go back to our drawing for a moment. So in talking with the artist, it became clear that what happened was at different stages of the drawing, when he was drawing different parts of the scene, he's remembering different parts of different teaching videos on perspective. Because in perspective, it means that the lines come down like this, and then I have to do this, and I have to do this. And then occasionally he would look at his reference photo and think, oh, but this line is like this. But the problem was then parts of the photo weren't fitting in with the perspective lines that he'd already drawn, because he'd drawn these perspective lines remembering a video, not looking at his reference photo. It's a problem when we trust a perspective video that we've seen more than we trust our eyes in looking at our reference. And again, when he shifted from this building to this side of the street, other parts of perspective videos are filling his mind of what you have to do this right. And it's all a distraction at this point from actually looking at the reference. Being more concerned with some theoretical framework and getting it right than actually looking to see where's the line in the photo. I need to draw the line on my drawing in the same place. And again, with this building up here, thinking, yes, well, perspective means that the lines are at an angle on the sides, and they can be. But what's more important than remembering this tip from a perspective video is to look at our reference photo and to see exactly where are the lines where. If eye level is here, then the angle of these lines should be decreasing down the side of the building so that it becomes horizontal at this point instead of parallel all the way down. Almost always, as artists, our time would be better spent carefully observing our reference than trying to remember a video that we've seen. So this is a scene that I actually did draw for another video. And here's my drawing. So how were perspective videos helpful in my drawing this rather than becoming a problem? They were helpful because they led me to see what was actually here. So because this is flat ground, eye level is where all these heads are. But it reminds me, with the perspective rule for people on flat ground, that the heads approximately line up. And even these people very far away, their heads are on the same level as these people who are very close. And so it reminds me when I draw, I have to make sure I position their heads in this way. It also reminds me that the perspective lines will converge on this eye level point. And while I'm never going to draw this and plot this point and draw the lines from it, when I look at my photo, I remind myself that this angle is such that it will meet this angle, and that all of these perspective lines will also meet here. And so when I draw, it makes me focus attention on getting these angles accurately, particularly this most extreme one, which is often the one that we tend to make a bit less. I have set this drawing many times for my drawing students, and very often this top line looks more like this. Now, my perspective videos also tell me that when we're looking at a circular shape from below looking up, the higher it goes from eye level, the rounder it becomes. And that alerts me to the fact that this circular shape is actually going to be slightly rounder than this circular shape. And this one will be slightly rounder than this circular shape. So what I find is the rules of perspective alert me to what I should expect to see, and then it helps me to see it more easily. And because I've now observed it more accurately, I can draw it more accurately. But when I go to draw, I'm not thinking of the perspective videos. I'm totally focused on my reference and what I've observed and seeking to reproduce it in whatever drawing style I want to use. So perspective theory doesn't make this happen. This is what happens in the real world. Perspective theory describes it. So I should let all those videos prompt me to see what's in front of me. But my focus should always be to see what's in front of me and to see all the parts of it I need to see to draw it accurately. G'day, I'm Travers. And of course, lots of amazing artists deliberately distort perspective as part of their creative handling of a scene. And it often looks amazing. But personally, I feel to be able to do that well, you need to know the rules and understand them and how they work before you can break them in a really credible way. But as with all things art related, it's all personal choice. But if we're trying to draw with an accurate perspective, the most important thing always is to observe what's in front of me and to seek to duplicate it in some way in my drawing. So don't let memories of teaching videos on perspective, even mine, become confusing at that point. If they're not bringing things to mind that are helping you, forget them and put all your effort into observing what's in front of you and working out the creative process you'll use to represent it on your paper. And as always, have fun doing it. Bye.